Wednesday, December 7th is when this podcast was made, but this is a podcast that will be speaking about mainly the weather next week, Tuesday, December 14th, which might also cover part of Wednesday, December 15th. A very major storm system will be affecting the Midwest, probably the entire Midwest from south to north, with heavy snow and tornadoes. We will also briefly discuss this Thursday night into Friday, possible snow, especially north of Chicago, but little accumulations expected. More significant snow probably a little bit further north. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. In about 5 days from now, 5 24-hour periods, by next Monday night, we're going to start to see the development of a major low pressure system developing somewhere in Colorado. This storm system is going to turn into a powerhouse by the time you hit Wednesday, and by the time it hits hits South Dakota, as it reaches a barometric pressure of 29.1. Tuesday it's going to be moving quite slowly across Kansas, and then Wednesday it moves into the upper Midwest. The storm system probably reaches peak intensity at some point. It's an intensifying storm. The criteria necessary, many forecasters say that if the barometric pressure is 29.3 or 29.2, when it comes to an East Coast storm, it is safe to say that a foot of snow is what can be expected. This storm is expected to reach 29.1, says the European computer model. There's no question, meteorologists have no question that there's going to be Gulf moisture, in fact, plenty of it, along with Arctic air on the backside. Therefore, the Midwest could definitely expect at least a 6 to 12 inch snowstorm for next week. Nothing's ever definite, but for the upper Midwest, a 6 to 12 inch snowstorm. This one looks to be a little bit stronger than the norm, so we could call it for 12 to 24 inches of snow for next week in the upper Midwest. This is what looks like to be a Colorado low. The podcast a few days ago discussed something like this happening for Sunday, but we're gonna have to push it off, and probably Tuesday or Wednesday or both days for portions of the upper Midwest. At the same time, a severe weather outbreak will be expected to happen and is expected for the south central states. In fact, more tornadoes this upcoming week than this past week is what forecasters are currently expecting. As of now, Chicago looks like to be on the warm side of the storm for next week. For right now, we still have to get through this week, though, and Chicago looks like to be in the warm sector of the storm for this system as well. It's not nearly as powerful of a storm. But at the very end, as we pointed out before, if there is snow, the potential exists in the second half of the system, which would be Thursday night and Friday. Any precipitation that does fall as snow, the majority of it should be staying north of Chicago. There's always that chance that some of it could end up falling in Chicago, with very little, if any, snowfall accumulation expected. Parts of the northern portions, perhaps an inch, but this is not really my area of expertise. These types of storms we'll leave it up to the National Weather Service I could refer people to them. But next week is a classic Midwest type storm where sometimes people with just general knowledge about the synoptic setup could end up being more accurate than those that have all the information on the computer models. A Midwest storm usually is 6 to 12 inches. If there's reason to suspect that things might be more intense, doubling that amount should get it right. This should be an accurate forecast despite the number of days in advance. 12 to 24 inches for the upper Midwest, at least 6 to 12, but a bullseye of 12 to 24, with a severe weather outbreak taking place in the southeast part of the storm over in the south central states. You have been listening to the podcast Weather with Enthusiasm.